I'm really excited about the new year, and every company in the world is right now on a planning cycle, meaning they're taking their plan, figuring out their communication and their why for executing in the coming year. And today I want to break down the tactical steps that a great leader needs to go through in order to execute a flawless 2025. This plan has 3 different components, and we're going to go through each of them and then give you the tactical steps inside so you can think through what you need to do to achieve greatness for 2025. And we call it thriving in 2025. Okay, so you're in some future state. Before you get to that future state, you have to actually plan what today looks like. You actually have to look at what your number one resources today are. Like, your resources may be your unique product or your unique process or the fact that you are number one in your market. You have a ton of company resources right now as assets or the things that make you uniquely different. So it's really important in the planning process to nail those resources. Number 2, it's what are your materials? Maybe your vendors, maybe your tools. So what are the things that make you unique in this area? Like, what are your suppliers? What are your vendors? What are the tools inside your business that are unique to you that make you special? The third thing is to look at your human capital. Like, who's on the team? This is my favorite saying. Who's on the team and who do you need in order to win? That second part is the future state, right? So what are your human resources today? If you need more salespeople, more marketing people, more ops people, right here is the moment to list everybody on the team, understand who they are and what their unique skill sets are, and then think through what's my future state look like. Number 4 is your timeline. Now, this is a big deal. Inside your plan, understanding exactly the amount of time it takes to execute your plan is really what makes a great leader, because missed expectations can demotivate a team. It can make your people and your entire organization feel not successful. So it's important that you set realistic timelines and realistic goals when you're doing this process. So you want to historically look back at how long it took you to execute and also how often you hit targets. In this timeline, you're looking at today's numbers. Now you can take this exact same exercise and go to some future state. Like, what do I need in terms of resources, materials, tools, vendors, human resources, and timeline projects in order to land in that future state where your company is successful? And this is part of the plan. The next part of this process is how you're going to communicate this future state inside of your plan. Now, I'm in this men's group. One of the leaders came over and said, "Hey, Daniel, how do I become a leader inside this group?" And I was like, I just looked at him and I was like, you got to take notes, man. And so the most important thing as a leader is hold the context. And what that means is being able to communicate who is going to do the job, what resources they're going to have, who's on their team, and what the project timeline is. That is what a leader does, as well as take notes and measure KPIs. So when I was talking to that person in my men's group, the funniest thing about that conversation was I was like, hey, you need to hold context for the entire group. You need to take notes. You've got to remember names. You got to facilitate conversation and communication within the group. Then you have to measure the project timelines and make sure that the people that are communicating and bringing value to others in the group are highlighted, as well as delighting or deflecting people that are trying to take the group off their mission. So in this communication process, number 1, just taking notes is a big deal. And getting everybody's buy-in to the future state. So what that means is a lot of side conversations. And this is where a leader's like, I don't have time for that, or this is really difficult, or I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if they're bought into the plan and they understand the plan. This is that part of leadership that is difficult because it takes a lot of time. So buying into the future state is a big deal. Number 3 is holding the context, meaning you've got to hold everybody's part of the larger plan together and make sure that everybody's aligned with who's doing what and by when. So holding context for the leader to communicate the plan is a really big deal. The next thing is measurement. Now, this is the most difficult part because not only do you need measurement for your project timeline, But you also need measurement for individual contributors inside of the overall project. And if you're a leader of leaders, you've got to agree on which measurements are actually going to move the needle and which things aren't going to move the needle. So you've got to be very clear in your communication about how you're going to measure performance and project timeline completion so that everybody on the team is fully aligned. And you have to be able to raise the red flag when things are going wrong. And this is a really big part of being a leader. Now, when I say take notes, what's wild about that is I've gone back several years later to bring somebody back into the fold to realize that they needed to behave or be a different person, meaning they shared something with me in a one-on-one that they were highly motivated by, and it was why they were there. And there'll be times after 2 or 3 years that I'll go back to those notes and I'll actually, hey, I want to remind you what the impact you're making here is. I want to remind you why you're actually in this role and what you're doing in order to serve our customers and serve the business. And a great leader not only understands the historical context, but can communicate it in a way that is very motivating to their employees. So just being able to stay in context with your people and communicate the important parts of the plan, that's a really big deal to being able to create a plan and win. The last piece is motivation, and this is a lot of art and science. And so I'm going to break it down into a triangle and then explain right versus wrong or aligned versus not aligned. And the leader's job is to describe the purpose of the company in a way that people can wrap their minds around it. Meaning this purpose is very clear, everybody understands it, and hopefully it's the highest level of motivation, meaning you're helping others, you're making impact in the world. That's the important thing. Think, Apple, we're going to change the world, think differently. The purpose has to be high enough to draw people in and get great talent to your team. The leader's job in this is to be able to create a relationship with the team member. So through that relationship, you're looking for people who have aligned intentions and talents, meaning the leader is having communication and conversation with the team member to make sure the team member's motivation is aligned with the company's purpose. And they need to understand the individual gifts of that particular team member and understand what they want in the world. What's in it for them? What's their purpose? How are they going to be contributing to the overall purpose of the company? And a leader's job is to make sure that all of this is aligned so that the company can be like a rocket ship and go off and create the goals and hit the targets. This is one of the most important things that you have to do, because as a communicator, you have to make sure that the unaligned, the people who don't actually fit on the team, are off the team, and bring the people on the team that have the right motivation for the company to hit their purpose and to hit their targets. This is the work, what we just went over, creating a plan, communicating that plan, making sure the right motivation and an aligned motivation within your organization exists. And the reason I shared this with you is because I went back to when I was a baby entrepreneur, thinking through how do I win? What are the resources I need? And the stress and anxiety that planning for the next year actually causes. And if you're in a space where you'd like to help your friends or families or colleagues with the planning process, this is a very simple framework that you can use right now. And it's the power of reflection. You're reflecting on where you've been, what you've accomplished, who's on your team, what resources, and then how you're going to communicate that plan and get the right aligned motivation within your team, which is this is the magic that creates great strategy so that your team can go out and execute. And I hope and I want you to win in 2025.